Hello and welcome to another exciting Blender tutorial. Today we're going to be jumping in and doing some animation with our little droid. Let's get started. Okay, so if you've been following along the droid series, we've been just doing a few simple tutorials. We did one, modeling and texturing this guy, and then we did another one about rigging, and we've made this little rig for our robot. So I thought it'd be really great just to do one more and talk a bit about basics of animation. Now, a lot of people jump into Blender because they want to do animation. They see a Pixar movie or something and they go, I want to do that. And so they dive headfirst into tutorials and they start learning all this stuff. And you know what? Blender is a great piece of software to use for animation, especially computer animation. You can do hand-drawn 2D animation, all kinds of stuff with it. But it's just really great. I use it for all my professional work. It's just fantastic. So if you're learning Blender, don't feel like you're wasting your time or you're learning something that's not going to pay off in the long run. You're learning a great piece of software, and I guarantee this thing's going to be, even more popular as the years go ahead. So very worth your time. I thought what we'd do is we'd talk a bit about the principles of animation and kind of approach today basically like a foundations course in animation. How do you think about animation? How do you approach it? What are the problems you run into? And, what should you be doing when you're thinking about what you want to animate, especially when it comes to a character? Character animation is really specific and unique. Now, there's some little tweaks we need to make to our rig just to kind of expand it. So the first part of this tutorial, we'll just do a little bit more rigging. And then we're going to get into talking about animation. And we might even get to do a little walk cycle possibly for this guy. I think that might be fun. All right, so let's get started. Now, if you'd like to make this little robot so that you can follow along with this tutorial, you can find those tutorials for free on my YouTube channel here. You can watch the modeling the droid so that you can make him, and then rigging the droid so you can rig him. If you don't want to go through that process and you want to just go ahead and just get this droid and just jump in the animation, you can actually get it right now. I've got it up on Gumroad so that you can buy it there if you want to just have this project file, if you don't want to go through the time yourself of building it. You can also get it if you become a member of the Patreon. So you can join up on Patreon. We've got a lot of great things there. And at the $10 level, you get project files, but only project files for the month. So if you're thinking about it, jump on it now for the month's over. You get it for this month and the previous month. So you've got this month and next month to jump on that. Anyways, I'll put all links to that stuff in the description below. Check it out. And again, if you enjoy this video and you want to see more stuff like it, please hit that like button. The more people that like it, the more people that leave a comment, the more others can discover this stuff and my channel can grow and we can keep making more cool tutorials. So I really, really appreciate all the support that everyone's been throwing my way. It's just really amazing. So thank you very much. Now, the first thing we need to do is kind of improve our rig a little bit. We've got a little problem. If I grab my foot bone in pose mode that we made and I move it around, you can see that the foot is, it's kind of dropping below the ground. So if I have a ground plane here in my scene, whoops, add a little plane, scale it up, bring it down so that it's right at the feet, right about there. You can see his foot's always going to be going below the ground. So that's going to be really annoying for us if we're animating, because it means that every time we do something, where there's a bit of bend or rotation, we're going to have to come in here and also then rotate the foot and animate that. It's just a lot of extra work, but we don't have to worry about that. So when we are in pose mode, we come over and we select our foot bone, so not our controller bone. So make sure you're selecting the foot bone itself. And we want to come over here to the Bones tab, and we want to go under Relations. Now, Relations is all the stuff that deals with how this bone relates to other bones. And automatically, you've got things here like Inherit Rotation turned on. So it's going to inherit the rotation of its parent bone. And this leg bone is the parent bone. So that's how that's going to work. Now, if we turn off Inherit Rotation, you'll see the foot pops back up into place. So that's exactly what we want to do with both of these guys. So I'll select my other foot and I'll turn off Inherit Rotation. Now, if I move this around, you can see, well, we're still going through the floor because I didn't actually put it in the right spot, but you can see the foot's flat. So that's good. More importantly, if I bring this bone back up so that the feet are on the ground, I grab the body here, I can move him around and his feet are going to stay planted, and he can dance. And that's great, because why not have a dancing droid, All right, so let's, I'm going to select all, type F3, and I'm going to type in reset just to reset my pose. Now, next thing I want to do is I want to give a look control to my robot. So it's really handy when you're animating, you want to have your robot look at something. It's great to actually just use a bone for that because you can actually position that bone right where you want it to go, and it's just really effective. So I thought we'd do that as well. So let's go into edit mode because we need to add a bone. And I'll just grab the big master bone and I'll hit Shift D to duplicate. We don't need to do that. We could also just delete that. We can hit Shift A and that's just automatically going to add a bone. Because there's no other options to add. Like you can't add mesh into an armature. That's when you hit Shift A. It doesn't give you a menu like it does everywhere else. It just gives you a new bone. Anyways, this bone's not parented to anything whatsoever. But we can just stick it out here somewhere like so, make it as big or as small as you want. I will line it up so it's, let's see, we'll make it dead on the Y. Oh wait, why did it do that? Oh no, X, that's what I meant. So I'll zero out my X value for both of them, and then I'll just grab him on the Y and bring him out. So that's why he's just like, he's right in the center of the scene, right down the middle of our guy. And then what we can do is we can take this bone right here, go into pose mode. So take our master controller, because this is the one that controls, you know, kind of how he's turned and like the way he's looking and stuff. And we can create a constraint. So we come to the bones constraint tab. There is all kinds of toys in here for you to play with. These are a lot of fun. I encourage you to just run through them, try all kinds of stuff. But what we want to do is we want to go for a damped track. Now, damped track is a constraint that basically points one bone at another. That's the simplest way to do it. So you can use it for like, you know, a gun turret or, you know, eyes or a robot head like we're doing. Anyways, we're going to just grab the little picker thing and click on this. And then we need to set what is the axis that needs to be tracked. So it's set automatically to Y. And the reason for that is because it's kind of logical. We've put this thing way out in front on the Y-axis. So it's probably correct. Let's just have a look. No, it's not correct. Oh, sorry. We need to actually select the bone. So the target selects the rig. I always mix that up. It's really important to remember first thing you got to select, the target is actually the rig itself, because you might be tracking to another rig. So a good way to think about that is like, say you've got a character with he's going to pick something up, so he's got his hand and you've animated his hand and there's a cup. You might have that cup rigged to one bone, right? So that whole cup is being controlled by that one bone. But that's a different armature. It's not the same armature as your character. So when he brings his hand down to pick up that cup, you could actually use this to cause him to like look at it, like to point, point towards the cup. So wherever he lifts the cup, his eyes would follow that cup. So that's how that works. That's why you got to kind of do this both. So I'm gonna go ahead and name this one as well. We should do that. So instead of just bone, I'll call this look control. So it's nice and clear. And I come back to this, go back to my constraints tab, and now I can just type in look control as opposed to scrolling through the whole list. And hit enter, and boom, he's gonna bow down in reverence to the look bone. Which, that's fine. But we can also move these around to get him in the right position. So there we go. Z is the right axis. Now again, I didn't know that. I just clicked them randomly until it looked right. So I don't feel like I'm, know more than you, because I don't really. In fact, the best way to find out you don't know anything is to start making tutorials on YouTube, because everybody in the comments tells you what you should have been doing in the first place. But it's great to learn. I mean, it's very handy for learning. I learn a lot. Anyways, now we have a look control. You can see the advantage of it. It's really nice. It's just something we can animate easily. All right, great. So that's it for our rig. I feel like we've got some really, really great controls. So I'm going to hit A again, F3, reset. Just going to keep resetting my pose. Now this guy's up a bit high, so I might I just might bring him down a little bit in edit mode. Going again, bring it down a little bit more. There we go. Now he's not looking up. Cool. Okay, perfect. Now let's go into pose mode and start talking about animate. I'm going to switch from my timeline view. I'm going to go to my dope sheet. Dope sheet's very powerful. It's actually kind of similar to the timeline, because in the timeline you can, open up a summary and get all the different things that are keyframed. Sorry, coffee break. So how do I want to break this down? I love animation. Animation is so much fun. It's so exciting. It's great. I'm so happy to be teaching this to you. One of the tempting things when you're animating, right? Another thing that'd be really helpful is I'm just going to drag up. Now, if you don't know, if you put your little mouse in the corner of any window, you get the little plus symbol. You can click and drag, and that breaks it into a new window. So just be aware of that. I'm going to switch to my timeline view. Now, the timeline here, the reason why I like to have this up with the dope sheet is because I like this control right here. I like to be able to click to the end or click to the beginning, or jump to specific keyframes. There's hotkeys for that, but I just like it. I also like being able to change the start and end time of my scene really easily. And anyway, so I keep this up, but I just drag it right down because I don't need anything but these controls. And it would probably make more sense if I put it underneath. That'd be really nice. Like it would look good. It would be like the bar down there with the controls and the thing. Anyways, you could do it however you want. All right. So first up, the tempting thing that you would want to do, right? If you're animating, you make a rig, you're really excited. You want to just jump into it, right? And so you're like, oh, this is gonna be great. I'm gonna animate this guy. We'll start here, right? And I'm gonna hit I. And it's gonna bring up my keyframe menu. And I'm gonna go, I'm gonna do my location on my look control, and then I'm gonna come forward to like this frame, and I'm gonna move him over here. So he's like looking at me, and I'm gonna hit I again for my location, and he's like, yeah, look, he looks at me. That's so cool. Then I'm gonna grab my master controller. I'm gonna hit I here, and we go forward, and I'm gonna like bring him down, and then he's a bit wonky, but that's all right. I'll bring this down too, maybe. Yep, that'll look good. And then I'll select both these guys and I'll do my location keyframe. And then it's like, oh, this is cool, you know, and oh, it's a bit slow. And maybe I'll drag these keyframes and I'll pull this like this. And anyways, the point I'm trying to make is you end up with something, right? This is something. He's alive, he's moving. But you don't end up with a lot of control. And you also don't end up with really amazing animation, because really amazing animation is planned. It's thought through and it's considered. The way you do that is you actually need to think through it in the traditional way of going through, what are your keyframes? What are your breakdowns? What are your in-betweens? Now, what do those terms mean? Okay, a keyframe is a key pose. It's a key moment in your action. So let's say you have a little robot and you want him to look at the camera and take a step back. Like, whoa, he's surprised. There's a couple of key poses in that, right? So you have the first pose. How's it going to be posed at the beginning? It's going to be kind of like looking off the distance, right? So you want to get that pose. And then you want to go forward a little bit and you think, all right, what's my next pose? So let's figure that out. Let's actually do it. I'll show you how I would think about this. Now, everything I'm going to be talking about today is taken from a book called The Principles of Animation. Excellent book. I recommend looking it up. There's a lot of videos online as well, like about it. And this is how they would do it in Pixar, by the way. If they're like Pixar animators, like sitting down to break out a scene, this is how they do it. So I'm letting you in on a secret because I've worked at Pixar for years. I'm just kidding. I've never worked at Pixar. I've never even I've been to San Francisco. They've never invited me. They will invite me, I'm sure. If you like and subscribe and join the channel today, right now. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna switch my keyframe type. Okay, so right now, if I hit I, location, go forward, and like grab, and then hit I, right? I've got a slow down. It speeds up and then it slows back down, right? If you look at this in the graph editor, which shows us a different representation of these keyframes, you can see what it looks like. It's a gradual curve. I don't want that. I actually want to work in a different mode to begin with. I want to work in something called stepped. So if I take my keys here and go to interpolation mode, constant, sorry, is what it's called in Blender. It's called constant. Now look at it. It's actually like a stair step. And basically what that means is this keyframe, it stays this value until we get to the new keyframe, and then it just instantly changes to the new keyframe. There's no interpolation going on whatsoever. Now, it's kind of annoying to have to go through and set that for every keyframe. So what I do is come up here to Preferences, and we go to Animation, and Default Interpolation. We're just going to go Constant, okay? We can leave everything else the same, and then close this out. Now, if I set any keyframe, it's automatically going to set it as a constant keyframe. So now that I've set my keyframes to constant, the reason to do that is it just helps you focus on these poses. What are the key moments of your animation? So let's get a nice first pose. So I'm going to kind of get him a bit of a natural, or try and get like a bit of a natural looking rest position. That's maybe a bit more natural than what we already have. Best to use the IK, the pole. So you can see if I do that, it's going to turn this one here a little bit. And I could do this, maybe a little bit like that. And I might even just offset him a little bit on the side. And then I might just turn his head a touch. And then I might even like rotate on the Y a little bit. So you can see like we have this little natural pose. You can click off to kind of see how it looks. And it's also really important to think about your camera. Where's your camera going to be for the shot? So let's make a camera just so that we've got that as a constant reference, because it's good to animate to your camera. Otherwise, you don't want to waste time. You don't want to waste effort and animate to something that's not there. It's the same like with materials or whatever. Like you want to make sure that it's all good. All right. So we got a nice first pose. So I'll select all my bones. I'll go into pose modes, right? Deselect everything. Back to edit mode. Object mode. Deselect everything. Okay, back over to pose mode. Now let's select all of our bones, and I'm going to hit I, and with everything selected, I'm just going to go right here, whole character, and just click there. And that's going to keyframe the entire character, but even keyframe bones if I didn't have them selected, but I had everything selected. So, and boom, you can instantly see everything appears here. So you can see, what do we got? What are we working with? I might even drag this up a little bit more, so I've got just a bit more room to see it all. These are all of our bones listed out. Each one has a keyframe for its position and its rotation, everything. So you can double check that by just opening them up, and you can see all the different values there. All right, now, this is the first key pose. So I want to go forward a little bit, just kind of guessing. I'm not really sure where I need this next pose to be, but I'm going to set up my next key pose, which is the moment he looks at us. And so we're going to grab him like this, and we'll put him here, right there. And then let's see, I might rotate this one a little bit like so. And maybe grab this, like he's kind of pivoted his foot. I'll turn his foot a little bit like this, maybe even grab the foot and slide it out some, and bring him down a little bit. That's a nice pose. Feels a little surprised, a little bit like he's caught off guard. So again, I hit I, and I'm just going to do my whole character again. You can do individual bones. It's a bit cleaner that way, but at this case, this early stage, I'm just kind of doing everything. And I'm going to come forward again, and then I want to do like his surprise moment. So he's like pulls back, right? So he's going to, It's really helpful actually to act out your animations, even if it's a robot. Sometimes what I do is I'll set up a little camera and I'll film myself and I'll act it out and like a complete idiot. And then I'll watch that because you'll catch these little motions that you wouldn't think of when you're just kind of doing it like this, So you got to think of like, what are the little nuances? That's what sells animation. All right, so let's do a little surprise thing. So we're going to pull him back. I'll pop out of my camera, come over here. So he's going to go back. I think I might even like put one of this foot back like that. I hit Shift Z there when I grabbed him, so that so hit G and then Shift Z so that it wouldn't move on the up and down the Z level. I'll do it again. So grab Shift Z, pull him back like that. Go back to my camera so I can look at the pose. Let's see. I'll keep that one out there. Actually, I'll make sure he's still. It's kind of fun having him like down like this. It's kind of nice. Keep him looking at us. Just have a look at that pose. All right, and then we hit I again, whole character. Boom. You can see with our constant keyframes, it's just popping to these different moments, right? And then let's do maybe, it'd be funny if he like jumped up, right? Like, jumped up. So let's do one of those. Let's go, let's grab this and grab him on the Z, grab him on the Shift Z, bring him back. Bring his, actually, how do I want to do this? Let's see, I'll grab the poles. That's what this is. I'll make sure that they stay behind the legs so that it doesn't twist and get weird on me. I'll bring those up. Line up his legs a little bit with them. And then grab this. Might rotate the foot down like that. And rotate the foot down again, I think. I'll keep the look control in the same spot. Let's go at and I, and then let's go to I, and then whole character. Bingo. All right. All right. So now that we've like laid out these poses, right? We've used these hold keyframes. Okay. Now, hold keyframes, again, they're not giving us any in-betweens, but it helps us just to think about now the timing of our animation. This is super important and really helpful. Your animation is going to become so much better if you do this stuff. So let's think about the timing. How do we want this thing to play out now that we've got these main key poses? Well, we've got this first one. then we want him to turn. And then, so let's think about that first moment. Let's just have him turn. I'll just click now. When you're in the dope sheet, remember that the first row is the summary row. So if I was to collapse this is going to select every keyframe that happens on this frame, right? If I was to take one of these random keyframes and then like move it to like right here, close my summary, you see we now have a keyframe here. This only represents that one little keyframe I moved because this is the only keyframe on this frame. So just move that back. There we go. So it's a great way to like grab a bunch of stuff. Now, if you wanted to like just move an individual section and you want to come down and grab it down lower on the hierarchy, it's still going to get highlighted up here. That's just telling you that you've selected a keyframe that's on this frame. Doesn't mean you've selected all of them. So just make sure you know what's going on. But if you click up here at the top like that, you can see now it's selected all of them. So that's how that works. Fold this back in. All right, let's get this timing right. So let's bring this over. So he turns. And then the next one, he's going to do like the surprise jump. So he turns, give him a moment to register us, and then he's going to go down. And then I think we'll go pretty quickly to the jump and also pretty quickly to the land. So I'm guessing here with these keyframes. So let's see how that feels. Probably a bit too fast. Whoop. Maybe bring him a bit closer to here. And then let's go ahead and get one last pose here, like as he stands back up, because I think that might be nice. Let's grab him up. Bring this one in, bring this one in, and eye and whole character. Okay, now I've got this last one. Now I can just kind of position it. Yeah, cool. All right, so I like this timing. It feels pretty good. So now what's the next step? Well, a couple things. You could just, turn on, smooth keyframes again, or what is it? Interpolate Bezier keyframes or whatever, and it's going to, smooth through the animation stuff. But we can actually gain even more control if we keep going with what we've got. So I'm going to come back over here to this guy, and I'm going to think about the in-betweens. So the in-betweens, or not the in-betweens, the breakdown poses is what they're called. Breakdown pose, you've got a keyframe, which we've just done. And that's where the term comes from, by the way, when we talk about make a keyframe for this frame and stuff. This is where it comes from. It comes with this idea of drawing a key pose, a keyframe. A breakdown is how do you move between these keyframes? And this is breakdowns are where your timing really starts to like come together. So when do we want him to like get down in this hunch? Like what happens in between these? And what's the pose that we need to have? So we could do this a lot of different ways. But if I kind of come here to the middle, right? And let's think about him. He's going to look at us. So he's going to turn. So I want him to he gets startled and he turns fast. So what is that? That's a fast head turn to a slow, so he gets here quick. So I'm going to come to right about here. And I'm actually going to click this keyframe. I'm going to hit Shift D to duplicate. And I'm going to grab, Shift D and grab it right here. Now you get this orange highlight in between these keyframes. This is Blender telling us that the value is the same between both of these keyframes for every keyframe on the summary. So it's exactly the same between these two. So nothing's changed. Oh, by the way, if you hit the up and down arrows on your keyboard, you can pop between keyframes. Really, really helpful. So I've duplicated this keyframe. And the reason for that is I want to make a keyframe here, a breakdown pose here that is very similar to this pose, right? Because I want him to move very quickly into this pose from here. So here to here very fast. So I'm just going to change this a little bit. So I'm going to think about these two. I'm going to bring the look control just over a little bit. I'm going to, and another thing that's helpful too, although it can mess you up, is if you turn on auto keying. So if you ever turn on auto keying, as soon as you move something, it automatically sets a key for it. So, but you can see right here, I was off a little bit. And so it can really mess you up if you're not careful. So I'm just going to make sure I'm actually on that key. I'm going to keep auto keying on. I'm just going to move him over a little bit. I'm going to pop here. Let's see what else changes between these two. All right, so his foot moves. So I'm just going to grab his foot just a little bit on the Y or on the X. There we go. Might even lift it up a little bit. And bring it back on the X, because it looks like I don't want him to I want him to still be moving over a little bit. Yeah, that feels right. So I'm looking at the arc of that motion of his foot, making sure it arcs up and down. So that way all these pieces are kind of like, they're close to their final position, but not fully in it. So now if we watch that, we can get a better sense of what the timing is. It's a little annoying with all the bones in the way there. So you can see it's not quite right. It doesn't quite feel right. I feel like there's another set of keyframes that's not showing me. That's odd. I don't know why that was going on. Right. Okay, that's a really important note. So I just got myself caught up there, and this is really helpful for you if you ever... So when I deselect all my bones, all my keyframes disappear, right? So what I was doing was just then I had like what, the look control selected or whatever, one of these selected. And I said, okay, I'm going to move these whole keyframes. I'll move all these keyframes forward a bit. What did I have? I had this one selected maybe. I don't even know. Anyways, so you can see it showing me these keyframes, but I was just in summary mode. So I was just grabbing it and I just moved it here, but I can tell there's this extra motion. What's going on? These keyframes haven't moved. Really important to remember this. Whenever you have the dope sheet open, this little icon here only shows selected. That can really mess you up if you're not careful. So if I select all these things appear, and you can see I didn't have these selected because they weren't in the dope sheet when I was moving those keyframes around. So I like to actually turn this off when I'm animating so that if I deselect everything, they just stay there. So I always know I'm grabbing what I want to grab. It's probably also a good idea to keep your summary open so you can actually, see everything and verify that it is moving. So anyways, I'll move those there. Now I should get the timing that I was wanting to see. Now, one thing that I'm feeling, and I see this little motion, is it'd be nice to have him kind of dip down. So he stays the same height on the Z plane right here between these two keyframes. But I feel like I want him to have a bit more weight. Now, creating weight in a character is really important for creating great animation. And to do that, you want to think about making sure you have things kind of sink into their weight whenever you have rest poses. So I'm going to grab this one, and I'm going to grab down. I still have auto keying turned on. Okay, so just keep aware of that. But now you can see he sinks down a little bit. Might even go a bit further on that. All right, now how are we going to get to this pose? Let's think about that. So now his feet actually scoot back. See, we've set this pose up so like he kind of, does a little move back and then he does the jump. This may not actually work for us. It might be better if his feet stayed in the same position and he just did the jump from here. I think that would make more sense than this, because now we've got to have like him step back and then jump. But I feel like with the action that we're creating, he needs to be surprised and kind of leap back. So let's fix that. So what I would do here is I would go, all right, well, I want the feet to be in the same position. So I could just come here and I could go, all right, so what's my foot controllers? Here they are. So foot control, I have named these really bad. Foot control right, that's 001. Sorry, I should have named everything left and right, but I didn't. Anyways, so I will shift select, which one is it? This one, right? So these are the actual feet, right? If I just grab this one, and then I should be able to shift D and just bring these over. And that's going to put the feet back in the same position. And now what I can do is I can grab the main controller, bring him forward a little bit, and then we can look at, yeah, that's a bit better. Now we just need to make sure that this one's not too far. Yeah, no, that works. That feels like a decent arc. Jump back into my camera view. Let's have another look at our breakdowns. Now, Blender's got a really cool feature. You can actually highlight stuff and we can set what kind of keyframe it is. This doesn't really do anything. At least I don't think it does. It's more visual just for you to know. So I'm going to label these a breakdown keyframe, right? All right, so let's keep moving. So we've got this nice kind of, pop. Let's figure out how we're going to go. Do we need a breakdown for this? I think so, because I want to I want to just clarify as I'm animating here, I want to clarify that he's going to hold this position for quite a while. And then he's going to start moving into this one. And it's going to be quite sudden, right? So I'll do the same thing. Or what I do is I'll take this and I'll Shift D, drag it maybe right to here. And I'll grab this and I'll move it up a little bit. And I'll jump between these two keyframes just to see what's moving. There we go. So you can see this pose is kind of similar to this one. So we're going to go from here to here and then down, and then we're going to have the jump. So I can label this as a breakdown. And when we get to the end here, I don't think I really want breakdowns for these bits. I think they kind of make sense. I don't feel like I need any more. They're already really close together. Breakdowns are useful when you have like a long gap between keyframes. And let's see. For the stand up at the end, I want this to be kind of a slow, like he's kind of calmed down and he kind of eases his way back up. So I will come to right about the middle, I think, and I will, I'll Shift D again. I'll bring this group up and I'll just kind of raise him a little bit like this and bring this one in a little bit and this one in a little bit. So now if we play, I can also, I'll just bring my timeline down to here and I'll turn all that off so we can actually see it. Give myself a little bit more time at the end so we can see that in pose. Yeah, it looks pretty good. So you can see how we're building this performance. We're sculpting it with the timing. We're thinking about how does it feel at this level. It's much easier to control where you're going when you're looking at it like this in this sort of stepped keyframe mode, okay? Before like worrying about curves and everything, right? So one thing that I'm seeing as he does his jump is that I feel like it could be a bit more extreme. So I think what I want to do is take this foot and just extend it down a little bit more like that. And I think I want to bring the look control up like this. And I want to kind of straighten him up, I think. Maybe even raise him up a little bit higher. See how that looks. Yeah, so you see how that, he's really elongated there. So now one of the principles of animation is called squash and stretch. So the idea behind that is when you move something, you can squash it. So you can actually squash, but squashing is not just like scaling it like down like this. If you scale it down like this, it's also extending it out like this because you want to think about the total mass of your object, right? The total volume of your object, sorry. If you squeeze your object down like this, it's not going to lose volume. It's going to just move the volume. So it's going to shift out, right? So when he jumps, right, he's going to be kind of elongating out. Now, he's not like a squishy sphere. So, we're not actually like deforming him or anything, but we're using the same principle. He starts kind of squashed, his legs are out, and then he stretches out, gets really thin and elongated. So dragging his feet out for that jump so that they're even more long and he's even more extended really brings out a contrast between that frame and then when he's landed and he's really hunched down. The greater the contrast in moments like that, the better your animation is going to look. So you can just see how that feels better, seeing his legs stretched out like that. We've got our nice little basic keyframes, blocked out. It's looking good. I'm going to turn off auto keying just to be safe because I'm liking stuff. And now is a good time for me to go ahead and turn these into curves and see what it looks like. So let's find out what happens. So I'm going to hit A to select all. I'm going to right click these keyframes and I'm going to go Interpolation, Bezier. Right? Now it's going to automatically interpolate between all of my different keyframes. So let's just jump over here and let's just watch. Wow, it looks pretty good. So one thing you'll notice is when you switch to Bezier, you'll find some driftiness to some of your animation. So what I mean by that is your keyframes, like when you're looking at it in step mode, it's like rock solid. It's like chink, 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 chink. When you switch to Bezier, of course, it's interpolating between everything, but you can have these little moments like the jump, for example, that loses some of its bite, right? It just feels a bit weak, this jump, now that it's sort of all being interpolated. But most of it feels pretty good, especially this beginning bit. And you can see all of our breakdowns and stuff. Everything's like working to kind of maintain the character of the animation that we came up with, but really helping to smooth it out. So, all right, let's keep going. All right, so how would we begin to improve this? Well, let's switch over to the graph editor. Now, the graph editor has a similar thing to the dope sheet, which is only showing selected. So I'm going to untick that. These are all the curves of our animation. You can see that there are a lot, and they're quite spread out. It's a bit of a mess. It's hard to work in this mode to try and like affect things, right? Unless you get specific and start looking at just the bits that you want. So yeah, if I hit A to select all and hit the full stop or the period key on my keyboard, it'll focus in on it and it'll show us the curves. It kind of squunches them all down. But a lot of these look straight now, but remember they're not actually straight. There's actually a lot of motion in these. It's just that in order to fit all of it, it's had to really kind of compress the view. So don't get tricked into thinking that there's not a lot happening right here. If I select these keyframes and hit the full stop key, you can see actually there's a lot going on there. So it can be a bit confusing. So let's find the moment where he does the jump and let's go slowly through it. So what's happening is his feet are leaving the ground the same time as his body, right? And they're landing at the same time his body's hitting that final pose. And that's not what happens when we jump, right? Our feet actually stay on the ground. The body goes first as the legs push up and then the legs go. So we could fix this in a lot of different ways. I will actually just jump back to my dope sheet. One way to do it would be to switch back to the stepped keyframe interpolation and just add a new breakdown in that corrects this. But we don't have to worry about doing that as much. So I'm going to come here and I want to go probably right about here and turn all my handles back on. I'm going to grab these guys and I'm going to grab both of them and I'm just going to drag them down so that we are still touching, still flat on the ground, I think. And I'll take my feet and I'll rotate them up on the, actually I'll just switch my little controls here. Bring the foot up, bring the controller up a touch, just like so. Bring this up a touch, bring this up like so. All right, and then I'm going to select that, and that. And I'm going to hit I, and I'm going to do the location and rotation of those keyframes. I don't worry about keyframing everything because I'm just focusing on these guys. But now you can see he slides, his body goes first, and then his feet go. Now we need to do the same thing over here. So we need to have the feet kind of find their resting position before the body. Another way of doing this is to actually shift select these guys. So I've got those four selected. And then what I can do is I can turn back on only shows selected, and that'll just narrow my view down. So I'm just looking at these guys. And then I can grab them and I can actually bring these like this just forward a bit so that what that happens is the feet actually kind of move faster than the body. So they come in and land first. You can see how that makes a lot more sense. The feet make contact and then the body scrunches down. But now one thing that we've lost is that sort of squash and stretch, right? So as we go, his feet kind of stay fully extended. So what we might want to do, let's see, he leaves the ground, they go up, is find a moment in between these two where his feet are actually way up high in the air. So I'm just going to turn on auto keyframing and I'm going to hit Shift Z just to kind of bring these guys right up like that. And let's see what that looks like. This might be a bit too tight, too close together. Yeah. A little too tight. So I'm going to turn off, keep all selected. And now I'm going to select this and all the keyframes after it. And I'm just going to drag them out just a little bit, just to give us a bit more room for our jump to happen. And I think maybe this one is a little too extreme. So I'll just grab this one and this one, grab these guys down a bit, and we'll do their location again, location and rotation. See if that looks any better. Kind of does. Turn that off. Let's watch the whole thing. So he goes, right? Yeah, sweet. I think it looks pretty good. Now, naturally, when you get to this end here, you know, he feels so dead as soon as the animation stops. So, you know, it's like, it's good to kind of, you know, add in little bits of animation when you've got a hold pose. So this is a hold pose, which means he's just going to stand here for a little bit. So what we might want to do is just I'll turn on auto keyframe again and just, you know, going through, maybe he kind of moves his legs, and you don't have to like all do it on the same frame, right? You can do these little like turns and stuff at different frames, different points. That's it's a bit too extreme. So I'm gonna take these keyframes and I'll just hit S to scale, just to scale them out. There you go. Just gives them a little bit of life. Our material is not set up for animation. Look at that. See how it's sliding all over his body? Let's go to our shader editor real quick. I'll just show you how to fix that problem. Well, there's a gotcha. Sorry, guys. Should have taught that from the very beginning. If we switch to generated, it's not gonna mess up the droid. Just as a note, if you switch to render view, if we're using the object coordinate for our mapping node, if we animate the object, it's actually going to move the texture coordinate. So based on where it's at. So you'll see the texture sliding over him as he moves. So you need to use the generated coordinate like we did down here in the texture. So that's important. Don't forget to do that. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that this is a really helpful introduction to how to think about animation when you're approaching it yourself. How do we, you know, break it down into your keyframes, how to think about timing, how to think about breakdown poses, and how to put all that stuff together so that you end up with an animation that works really well. If you enjoy this video and if you liked this little animation lesson, hit that like button, leave me a comment, let me know. Please subscribe to the channel. I'll make more of them. Let me know what you'd like to learn next. Maybe a walk cycle could be a fun thing for us to do with this guy next. Maybe we could do a little scene, all kinds of things. So just let me know what you want to see and we'll put it on the list. So thanks again for watching. Thanks again for engaging with the channel and for helping support it in all the different ways that you are. Really appreciate everyone in this community. You've been amazing and it's so exciting to see the channel grow. And yeah, just keep continuing to put these out so that you can learn more and more. So thanks again for watching and I'll catch you in the next tutorial. See ya. Bye.